Hey there, how you doing? Good morning for me, good whatever it is for you, where you are when you get this. I'm Yalek, and I'm going to be doing a Fat Fingers video today. Haven't done one of these in a little bit, and my teammates got on my case a little bit yesterday because, hang on, so we are, let's see, we're at 24 right now. We're in the middle of an operation. Previously, we got this group, this particular group, got up to, I think, number 12. But we've fallen back a little bit. We had a run of very good ops recently, but then last week we had two that were just disasters. You can see the 5 days ago down here, 530 out of 1250, and the day before that was even worse. I think we tried to 3-hit a base and it still didn't go down. So like we had those two, but before that we were getting closer to where we want to be, which is like competitive within the top 10. So back on track this week, and if you look at our last 4 days, I want to say, so 5 days ago, can't see the log anymore. 4 days ago, 5 blue lines. 3 days ago, 4 blue lines. That was a nasty tech crunch. It was the kind that had the rockets in the wrong place. 3 days ago, that's, wait, 4 days ago? 3 days ago. So 2 days ago, 5 blue lines. 1 day ago, 5 blue lines. Today, we are on track again for 5 blue lines. And so my, one of my teammates, Mav, asked whether I was getting this recorded, and honestly I said I hadn't. And the reason I hadn't is I'd kind of been thinking, and the hit that prompted my thinking was, let me see, it's probably this operation. Yeah, that's the one. My Orbifold here. I went in first. It was the 226. I knocked it down. It wasn't anything special. I think it was just 4 shocks. It wasn't particularly clean. I was out at a restaurant and hitting from my phone, but I didn't want my boost to die. So, like, yeah, we got 5 blue lines on that op, but then I was thinking, who wants to see that? So we haven't had any ops that are really, really spectacular recently, or with, like, a bunch of super hard hits, so I just hadn't been recording. But then I had the idea, you know what? Instead of showing 5 blue lines from this day, or from this day, why don't I show, like, some good hits from each of these? So I went through and picked some out, several of the 298 bases. I think the first one that I wanted to see, we have one from today and there's one from 4 days ago. The one from 4 days ago was Sven. It was the 298 and it was a Chimera. So we'll watch that one first. And then there was one op where I think I've got, might have been yesterday, where I've got 3 different hits to show. So that was a fairly good op. Standard opening for Chimera. A lot of cells because it's the 298. Got a few girls picked off there, but no big deal. So he'll get the rest of his boats down and head over to that corner. We'll look over here. 1.6 and a half, 1.8 and a half million or something like that for health. And if you noticed, Sven has chosen to go with brick here. You can do this hit with bullet, you could do it with brick. The health would allow you to take down either. But the interesting thing about choosing brick, I mean, obviously you've got a bunch of shocks back here. He's going to park right next to this 9 on the ground here. So he's got a shock right next to him. Have to be careful about your parking spot because you do have these things next to you. That calls for a shock because it's it does splash damage, and this rocket launcher is going to range you a little bit. So I think all told, there were like upwards of 9 shocks or something that you could do. Some of them are a little more optional than others, as you're about to see. Not that, there we go. Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal just to leave things unshocked, but in that case, I mean, even with all of those power cells over there, you're not going to have the GBE for that many shocks here. So we'll just watch and see how many it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a critter, and at this point he's just, you only have so much GBE, so at this point he's just left these top rockets unshocked completely. He did get a critter up there to eat up a little bit of fire, and he left this bottom rocket unshocked completely, and he still wins because he's Sven Slink, and he does that. I watched him do something similar some weeks back, but it was on a Waterloo, and he just decided there were too many shocks, so he just decided not to shock a laser. You never win when you don't shock a laser. He won. Whatever. Anyway, that was Sven. Mav has had some good hits here. He had a Phobos. I considered that one. He had another Minotaur in here somewhere. There, he had a Minotaur. But today, he had a Minotaur that was pretty beefy. So this is Mav on a 298. This is a 2.2 million Minotaur, a little bit more than 2.2, and once again he also has decided to go with brick. This one's not too bad on the beach, which is good. Probably wouldn't have been a solo without that. The bullet method here doesn't really work because you have shock launchers over here. If these are shock launchers or rocket launchers or anything that ranges you in your kill zone for the bullet method, then this really doesn't work out too well. So, pretty much had to be brick here. Plus, with the health being that high, you want the extra damage. This was, let's see, yesterday during the day, but we had no significant tribe bonuses for ops in the past cycle. So, this is pretty much just straight up. Now, he has lost the delay a little bit. I don't know if you noticed, but some of the rockets down here saw when he peeked out over here. However, importantly, all of these rockets up top, you see how they're all just facing a uniform direction? They have not lost their delay, which is going to be important here. Really need the delay. One thing I should have mentioned, the hit that Sven just did, one of the reasons he won was that he got to the kill zone with the delay. He did a similar thing to Mav. He peeked a little bit on his walk, but when he peeked, well, actually it's the same layout. So when he peeked, he was like over here, and the stuff over here in that corner, which would be on Chimera, this is all where the rocket launchers and stuff are, that stuff can't see you when you're way over here. So he had the delay on the important stuff in the corner, and that was what allowed him to have the time to win, even though he was leaving rocket launchers unshocked. Mav is going to lose the delay on just this one set of rockets up here, but what allows him to win here is that he keeps it for these groups of rockets up towards the top. He also clipped a shock mine in here, or clips it right just there. Doesn't end up mattering. So he gets 3 shocks out early. Now these last 2 you can afford to be a little later. Might have actually lost it on this guy too. It looked like that turned rather quickly, but these guys really didn't even get much chance to move because they still had not spotted his troops, and that's what gives you the time to shock late and do 2.2 million something damage on a 298. So that was a short lesson in the importance of the delay. I think we're skipping this op from 3 days ago. I considered showing that my ransom for my hit, but I decided not to because honestly it's one of the stupidest ransoms you've ever seen. Probably could have been no shocks, but there were some sniper towers, I shocked those. If you're shocking one-shot defenses on a ransom, then you really ought to win. There's nothing special about that. So I'm going to show for my hit, this is from yesterday's op, I'm going to show, actually 3 here. I'm going to show my hit, which is the blue water, and I'm going to show the next 2 after that. So, actually we'll do Perrin's now. So Perrin's is a 298. It was a 298, and it was a Waterloo, and he did something I love here. Health, so just 1.6, 1.8, just under 1.8 million. The front of this is super friendly. You could farm all of this with bombers if you wanted to, and if you had the time. He's, well, I mean, you don't have all day. You have to choose at some point you have to be done with your farming. But he chooses to farm, and I love the choice for doing that. He had extra shocks up here. Let's see, 1 shock, 2 shocks, 3 shocks, 4 shocks, 5 shocks, which is a lot on Waterloo because Waterloo is a long walk. So taking the time to gather up the extra GBE, knowing that the base health is not insanely high, so 7 boats of Zookas is plenty to take down this core if you get them there, and if you keep the delay and all that stuff. Plenty of damage to take down this core if you play it smartly. So, as I'm getting a bit of a reputation for being a serial farmer. Not a cereal farmer, not like grains. I mean, like, this is kind of my thing. So, I mean, there's a time and a place to know when to do it and when not to, and this was definitely the place to do it. So, that point, let's see. So, I usually farm down to, like, you need a couple of minutes safely. So, I don't know how much time he took out of his hit, but let's assume it was a couple of minutes. And I think I counted this earlier, and he probably got somewhere between 40 and 45 GBE out of that. You'd have to count it yourself if you're interested. I'm not that interested, I guess. So, no, not half speed. There we go, 2 times speed. Bombers are dead. Magic Path, you've seen this before. Nothing special there. Oh, I forgot to mention this. There was a delay drop on Brick. You see how far Brick is behind the Zookas? She's like a whole smoke behind the Zookas. Normally she would be out more than a whole smoke in front of the Zookas. So he also must have delayed Brick at the shoreline, which I forgot to mention. Pretty good call. I mean, it would be a tiny bit less delay. It would be interesting to see where he dropped her. A tiny bit less delay on the drop, and she would be right with the Zookas here. But normally she's way, way, way out front. So that's just a bit of an interesting feature. And we'll put this to regular speed. Hot pot there. Kind of intimidating, but not really any more of a threat than a flamethrower or whatever. One girl decides to peek. That always happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the mortars over here. He had the delay, so I probably would have gone mortars first and then these rocket launchers, but it doesn't really matter. So the mortar did manage to eat up some of his girls, but again, not super high health. He was able to get off. Mortars they fire relatively quickly, but then the mortar actually takes a long time to land. So meantime, his girls had time to get a couple shots off, which is what you need. You just need to buy yourself a few seconds to get these bases down. Next, I will do mine next. Mine is not particularly, there's nothing really technical about this hit, but I like this, and I'm choosing to show it. It's only a 155, but this is something I saw on Blue Water pretty recently, and for me, this is the new meta for this base. With Zookas, for years, this base has been problematic for operations, because if you have to approach this with Zookas, it's a mess, and you have to do some really tricksy stuff. I didn't even do a very good job with this hit, because, don't you know it, it never, ever fails. Nobody calls on the landline. I talk to nobody on the landline. I don't even give out that number. I sit down to make a video. Anyway, so I didn't do a very good job on this hit, because you'll notice Bullet is dead, and that wasn't supposed to happen. I had energy drink, so I was trying to keep him alive, but there is, while I said this is not a technical hit by any means, there is a lot going on here, because your bombers are spreading all over the place, targeting all sorts of things. I just need to clear a spot here at 7 o'clock. I need to clear a spot where I can stand free of these rocket launchers, which you see don't range over here. It's where we're trying to set up now. And I need to get as far away from these boom cannons as possible. I needed to kill just a few boom cannons so that I would have a place to stand. I got here with most of the shield intact, but I had 2 minutes and 45 seconds on the clock. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bombers alive. But that's a lot of time. And 8 bombers is kind of close to, what, like 3 boats of Zookas? and 2 minutes and 45 seconds to sit there and shoot at something like this. I think I've got 6 damage statues lit up, of course, for this hit. So, yeah, this is now the way that I approach this base. When there were only Zookas to approach this base was a pain in the neck. With bombers, that was actually a little bit of... I knew it was going down, and I still had like a minute left, so I threw the med kit there as a, you know, like a victory lap kind of thing. This, for me, is the way to approach this base now. It's not a Zooka base anymore, it's a bomber base. Circumstances depending, of course, but it hadn't occurred to me, like, I use bombers all over the place, and I use them in, I think, pretty creative ways, but it hadn't occurred to me on that base. Blue Water is now a bomber base. So, that was way more interesting than my ransom hit from a few days ago, anyway. And the last hit that I'm going to show is Argus, and this is on Axiom. It is a 262, and I think this was really friendly up top. The beach, you have to be a little bit careful in the beach. There's nothing to the right, but you do have to make sure to stay well out of range of these rocket launchers. Argus, I forget what the health is. We'll check that in a second. He chose to clear the boom mine that usually sits here. You don't have to, but I guess he was being safe rather than sorry. If you use certain flare points, you just will never even come close to that mine. A tiny bit to the left, like 1 tile to the left of where he's flared right there. Once you get to the kill zone here, there are 1 or 2 shocks on this base, depending. Let's see. So health was, again, a bit under 1.8, probably closer to 1.7, I guess. Somewhere between the two, excuse me. You don't absolutely have to shock on these flamethrowers, but they will pick off a few of your girls, usually as they spread from here. I believe he does choose to shock them. Yeah. Yep. Okay. And see, there's always that Zooka or so who wants to wander over here, right of that cell. I don't know what you're doing over there. You could just stay with the rest of the girls and shoot. I know you girls can pack in tightly because, you know, for example, I love doing the Machina hit with Zookas, and you get like 67 Zookas or something packed into one tiny spot on the map right over here. So why that girl needs to spread a whole power cell away from her, actually 2, 3, there's a couple of them in there, away from all of her associates, I don't know, but the intricacies of the game. Anyway, so I believe that's everybody. What are we at for time? Yeah, that sounds about right. So yeah, we're Fat Fingers. We are the 5-man team for the Triangle 9 family. We don't have a 10-man team. I don't know why. It probably has to do with the effort involved and so on, but we are the 5-man team. This task force, in the past, I wasn't with this group when it hit global number 2. I was with them. We got to global number 6 in a previous push, and now we are going to see where we can get to. Ideally, we should be living up here, assuming we don't have those disastrous days like we did have a week ago. More weeks like this, less weeks like that. And, you know, we'll get there. Anyway, I'm Yalek. You know how all the YouTube stuff goes at the end of the video. You can like, you can hit the bell, you can subscribe. I don't care. Do what you're going to do. But wherever you are or whatever you're doing, have a great day, and I will see you later. Take care.